uh, for our monthly meeting and for our very, very special guest today. So as I said before, we are on a time limit with our special guest. So we are going to start the meeting right now, and we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, and not someday, today.
Right.
Today and every day. All right. So I am going to turn this over to Kira.
I'm just here to introduce the Attorney General, who really doesn't need any introduction. She's our kick-ass Attorney General, Dana Nessel. And she's here. She's going to talk to us today about how a lot of the Democratic attorney generals, including, of course, her, are pushing back on the Trump administration's attempt to ruin our democracy. So again, she's on a tight timeline. I don't want to take any more time introducing someone who needs no introduction. We can't wait to hear from our attorney general.
And so in many ways, my writing,
Well, good morning, Benzie Dems. How you doing?
Oh. Yay.
So my schedule has changed a little bit today, so I actually have a little bit more time if you want to have me on for a little bit longer. But with that, just kind of to review, my department has now filed 10 cases against the Trump administration. On a variety of different cases. It would take me a very long time to go through all of them. Although if you want me just to list them off, I could do that. And we've also filed amici briefs. So, friend of the court briefs in support of another party that has standing. And, we've had a lot of success, honestly. Haven't won everything, but we've gotten a lot of temporary restraining orders almost immediately upon filing. We've gotten a lot of preliminary injunctions, which of course means that whatever the horrible policy is, it doesn't go into effect, or in most cases, it's money that is owed to a variety of different agencies or grantees or so forth. In other cases, even if we've not outright lost any cases. Some of them just continue on through litigation through the system, and we're hopeful that we'll be successful. So my basic litmus test on whether I bring a case or not is, look, I'm very mindful of the fact, of course, that Donald Trump is the duly elected president of the United States of America. I didn't support him. I didn't vote for him, but other people did. And I understand and recognize that. And I understand, of course, that he won the state of Michigan for some reason. He won the state of Michigan by 80,000 votes. But I won it by 370,000 votes. So I say that to say whenever I hear him say he's got a mandate to do whatever he wants, he does not have a mandate to violate the Constitution or to break federal law or any of our longstanding, rules and regulations as it pertains to federal agencies and rulemaking and all the rest. And also, look, I ran on the premise of, upholding the Constitution and also protecting the health, safety, and welfare of our state residents. And if that means having to hold the federal government accountable when they trespass on the rights and the liberties of our state residents, then that's what I'm going to do. I will say this too. A lot of the things that the Trump administration has sought to do, not all, but many of it, he could do legally if he wanted to. He just chooses not to. So many of the things that he's been doing, candidly, if he had Congress All he has is, get some of these, uh, some of these policies passed through the House and through the Senate and then sign off on them. And it would probably be legal to do a lot of things that way. Like if you want to eliminate the Department of Education or you want to eliminate the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or you want to eliminate the agency that oversees our museums and libraries, you probably could do it. The problem is even when he's got majorities in both the House and Senate, he doesn't have the votes to do it. And you know what? I don't think he even cares. He doesn't want to try to work with Congress. He just wants to do everything by executive fiat. And that's why you see him trying to literally and undermine the Constitution, even when it's very specific in black and white, by an executive order. Donald Trump is no LBJ. You know what I mean? He's not out there trying to, twist arms to get people to vote for the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act. He's no Barack Obama out there trying to get the ACA passed by working with, tight margins in Congress. And he ain't no Joe Biden trying to get the Infrastructure Act passed or the Inflation Reduction Act passed. Like that's how we create new laws that have long-lasting effect in America. It's not by being a king, which is, of course, what he, likens himself to. But since this is No King's Day, in our protests that hopefully many of you are going to and the rallies around the state, as I've said many times, the only king I want is Burger King. So anyway, I want to say this, and then I'll just open this up to questions because there's a lot to talk about. But for all of you, I mean, listen, it's not a secret. This is the case with most Dem clubs. I might suggest it is also the case with the Benzie Dems. You guys have been an incredibly impactful and effective club. I mean, I think, and I hope that you guys recognize that. You guys have changed things substantially in Northern Michigan. You have made a big difference, whether it's in state government, whether it's in our federal elections. But with saying that, in terms of how we're really going to make a difference, yes, it's going to be calling up members of Congress, absolutely, especially Republicans. Yes, it's going to be making our voices heard and talking to people in our communities, posting stuff on social media. But it's really going to be this revolution is going to be led by seniors. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We need seniors who are dedicated to ensuring that we maintain our democracy. And that means, to the extent that you can, not just talking to everybody in your community and letting them know how these policies are detrimental to them, even, of course, to Trump supporters, which is a hard thing to do. I had a meeting out in Southwest Michigan last week with a number of farmers, many of whom had been decimated by the sudden termination of contracts with USAID or with the USDA or with MDARD or with various food banks that they were, had planted crops and they had made purchases of supplies and equipment and had hired laborers and then didn't even get an email or a phone call. Just the money stopped coming in. And, they're really struggling with what do they do? This was a person that they supported. And, it's hard to come to grips with the fact that the person you had faith with doesn't give a crap about you at all or your family members. So it's hard to kind of become deprogrammed from that a little bit. So people are struggling with that. But you know what I mean? I think we have to have patience and understanding, but we also have to have those hard conversations about what this administration is trying to do. But it's more important than ever that we do this. Firstly, peaceful, lawful protesting with a permit, but that you be out there in large numbers And candidly, it's got to be a senior-led movement. I really believe this. And why do I believe that? Well, even though today, Christy Noem uh, and uh, and the Department of Defense and others have said that they're not going to recommend to the president that the Insurrection Act be invoked this weekend, as we had thought it might be. Eventually, it will be, and we'll have large scale protests, and that is what is going to shake up, I think, Republicans in Congress to finally do their job, and of course inspire the courts to do what they should be doing, which they're finally seemingly starting to do, and to get other stakeholders like universities to push back, which Harvard, right, finally did, to get law firms to push back, to get all of these big organizations and groups and stakeholders and elected officials to be like, no, 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 this is not okay. And to say some of the things that Lisa Murkowski just said recently, right? Where she's like, I'm afraid this isn't right. We need more Republicans to start doing that. But it's because they have to see seniors out there. Now, why is it so important to have seniors at the head of this movement? A few reasons. One, because seniors vote. So let's start with that, right? Seniors vote, and seniors can make the difference in any election if they are making their voices heard loud enough in the, on their ballots. But also, candidly, because when the Insurrection Act is invoked, and it will be at some point, and when you have members of the National Guard that are there on the streets, and when you have members of active military service that are there on the streets, they're not going to want to shoot their grandmas in the face. And I know that's a hard thing to hear, but I get concerned, if we have mostly young people, many of whom have taken to wearing masks. And if we have young people who don't have the patience and are a little too riled up, and if they're committing property damage crimes or they're antagonizing the police, and we have an incident, people are going to look to it and say, oh, that looks like Portland in 2020, or that looks like Seattle. I support the National Guard, using violence against those people. And what we know is this, it's really important to remember this. It only takes some 3.5% of a nation's population to peaceably, lawfully protest in order to stop a government that is a democracy from sliding into full-blown autocracy. The studies have shown that time and time again. And so for the United States, that's only 12 million people. We had 5.5 million people or more who were protesting on April 5th. So, that was the first big protest. In Michigan, we're talking about, 350,000 people. I mean, we can do that. Look at all the protests up north. Look at all the protests in the UP on April 5th. They were not just in large communities. I was in Lansing where there were 7,000 people, but there were large and small gatherings all across the state of Michigan. And I know we can do this. And we're already seeing it, right? Republicans are starting to change their tune. The courts are starting to get stronger. And we really do have the ability to save our democracy. But it involves all of you. And you guys have to lead the way. And you also have to be sort of the elder statesmen and women to say to some of the younger folks, don't be antagonizing the police. They're hurting too, right? Their jobs are in jeopardy as well, by the way. The Department of Justice is cutting all kinds of different grants. They just cut all the violence against women grants, predictably. But that's really going to affect my department and the work we do. And it's going to affect, there's going to be all kinds of funding that is cut off to police departments as well. So, you know what I mean? We can't view police officers who are out there at these events who are there to protect us as our enemies. We have to be extra nice to the police because we don't want to give them a reason to use any kind of violence. And this way, if we do, God forbid, engage in any kind of activity where they are, violating our civil liberties, frankly, it's just going to be a lot more sympathetic if that happens with seniors than if it does with younger people. I'm just being honest about it.
Get in the shower.
So I guess I just tell you all this to say, like, Benzie Dems, now is your time. Now's your time to step it up, and lead the way and be helping to organize these protests and also making sure that like everybody knows the rules, right? There are so many ways to protest lawfully, peaceably, and to get permits to do that. And I really see that as the way forward. But if these protests turn violent, what I know historically, but also what I know from the polling that I've looked at, is that people will not have the same sympathy for protesters as they would otherwise. And more people will want to join us, So that's just a little bit in terms of sort of my philosophy. I know there's a lot of legal questions that you have. I normally do. I don't know how many of you went to the Betsy Kofia of
Right. Go back and undo it. Go back and undo it. You can't undo it. She's got to undo herself.
Oh, you can request her to unmute.
Dana, could you please unmute? For some reason, we muted you in error. Thank you.
All right. Well, just pretend I said some very brilliant and remarkable things.
Of course you did.
Of course I did.
I think we cut you off when you were talking about Betsy Kofia's
Oh,
event.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know how many of you attended the event that she and I had, the Federal Action Town Hall. But I went case by case by case, and I have like twice as many cases now. So we won't have time for me to, do a PowerPoint presentation on all of that. But I'm happy to answer whatever questions I possibly can, and to talk just generally speaking about, what questions about the work that we're doing at the Department of Attorney General, and also, just general things I think we can do to really push back in this perilous time. But I know that you guys saw the decision from the Supreme Court very late last night or early this morning. And I guess that's just to say, I think they've had a little bit. I don't want to say they've had enough of him. I mean, I know, Alito and Thomas, you know what I mean? There's nothing that Trump will do likely that they will end up really turning against him. But for some of even, his other appointees, I think they're willing to rein him in. And I think that's important, and it's a good thing, obviously.
Thank you, Dana. Just wanted to let you know that you're speaking to more than 100 people, both online and in the room here. So I'm sure, thank you for encouraging people to speak out and be peaceful and make their voices heard. And of course, you've got a lot of the people that you spoke about who are going to be leading this effort. And we've been out there. We had a Benzie event on April 5th, and we had more than 400 people, which blew us away. So, thank you all who participated. So we're going to take some questions. And if you've got a question and you're on Zoom, please do not unmute. Just please raise your hand or put your question in the chat, because there are way too many people. And we'll start here in the room with Steve.
Good morning, Dana.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to get up. I don't have a question, but I wanted to get up and I wanted to say how much we all dearly love you with all of our hearts, and how much we thank you for all that you do for us. And you are a warrior, and you represent hope and love. You don't represent hate and fear. So therefore, like all our warriors, many of us, we pray for safety and protection around you all. So I want you to know that you, Alana, and the boys are well protected.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I will say this, just again, candidly, I always try to be as honest as possible. I do think that it's only a matter of time before the president, the Department of Justice starts to target folks who are in elected government. And I know you probably saw a a very public criminal referral involving my colleague in New York, AG Letitia James. And we've seen similar efforts against the New Jersey Attorney General and also, I believe, the Nevada Attorney General. So, that's to be expected. But I know for myself, I mean, I made the decision many months ago after the election, like, look, I could either do my job and do it to the best of my ability, uh, or I should just resign. You know what I mean? But you guys elected me to serve a second term. For some reason, I thought it was a good idea to run for a second term. And now I got to do my job. So I'm doing it the best that I possibly can. But when you have an autocrat in power, these are really these are dangerous times, but they're dangerous times for all of us. And that's why we all really have to start working together. And if I can just make this remark, even though no one asked me about it, um, whether it's Democrats, whether it's bringing independents on board, whether it's trying to convince people who are Republicans that, like, look, I know you voted a lot for a lot of things, but did you vote for more sea lamprey? Because I didn't vote for more sea lamprey. You know what I mean? Like letting them know this is not, did you vote to potentially, shut down or drastically reduce the number of visitors that could go to Sleeping Bear Dunes? I mean, I didn't, most people didn't vote to decimate their national parks. Certainly, very few people, I think, voted to upend the Social Security Administration such that they might never receive a check. These are the kinds of things that we have to talk to people about and sort of like talk to them where they are. I know, listen, I care deeply about the Venezuelan nationals that legally sought asylum and are here in our country legally and are being, I can't even say deported, let's use the term kidnapped and placed in a maximum security human rights atrocity prison in El Salvador. That might not be the message that resonates the most with some of the people but maybe shutting down their local library matters to them. Maybe losing their Medicaid matters to them. And so it's really important that we're talking to people where they are because these terrible policies affect everyone, literally everyone. There's not one of us that will escape significant injury and harm. So let's get as many people together as possible to fight back to preserve and save our country.
Thanks, Dana. And I'm glad you touched on Medicaid and Medicare because we have a question from Kim in the audience. Kim?
Hi,
And Kim, you've got to put that close to your mouth, please. Thank you.
I'm Kim Steed. This is my daughter, Jessica.
You have to put it close to your mouth, Kim. Thank
This
you.
close?
Yes.
She's very severely, totally disabled. She lost her Medicaid 3 months ago.
Your mouth, Kim.
And we've been working on it every single day forever to get it back on. And so I'm worried about Medicaid. I'm worried about her disability. I'm worried about Social Security because my parents and my neighbors have that, and Medicare, veterans benefits, and the EPA for the Park Services. I grew up on the Great Lakes. I grew up on the Great Lakes, and I also think that the most important thing to a well-functioning democracy is an informed and educated electorate. And I'm not finding that on the media these days. And I'm trying to get her Medicaid back. I spent every last cent trying to get her medical supplies.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing
So
that.
I'm hoping you can work on that.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I will say this, right? First of all, you saw that the governor issued an executive directive to all the state agencies so that they could compile information about what it would mean if we had Medicaid drastically reduced in the state, just so we could have all of that information together. Now, there's two components of it, right? one of the first things I did after Trump took office was when the Office of Management and Budget tried to completely zero out our funding for Medicaid from the federal government, understanding that 42% of our state budget comes from the federal government, and they tried to, eliminate funding for not just Medicaid, but Head Start and Meals on Wheels and all of our FEMA funding and our SNAP program, all of that. We were able to sue and get that funding resumed immediately for the most part. We've had a few struggles here and there. But here's the problem, right? If it's done illegally, meaning if we have appropriations that are from Congress, that's been authorized by the president, and the federal government, meaning the executive branch, just decides to stop funding it, then I have a legitimate lawsuit. That is a separation of powers issue because Congress appropriated that money to us. And, now for us not to receive the money, that is illegal. However, here's the problem. It's not illegal if it's a budget that's actually passed by Congress and signed by the president, and they decide to either drastically reduce Medicaid or, eliminate it altogether. And that's where you really have to stand up and argue as much as possible with our federal representatives in the House and in the Senate. Now, I know that Jack Bergman has not been very responsive to you, and that's very much putting it mildly, when it comes to your concerns about Medicaid. And I just don't understand it. Like, I don't get stripping people of their medical insurance and really so much more that Medicaid provides to people who need it the most and who don't have any other means to get it. But those of you that are potentially losing it or have lost it have to be as loud as possible. The state government can make up for some potentially of the losses because, of course, these are programs where there's matching programs. Some of it comes from the federal government, some of it comes from the state government, but we don't have the budget to make up for all of it. There's just no way. So that's literally talking to every single solitary person that relies on Medicaid and is going to lose that critical funding and programming to be as loud as you possibly can. Now, will this same budget pass in the Senate? I don't think it will. I hope it won't. And if it doesn't, and they continue to make cuts, then yes, I continue to be able to have lawsuits. But again, a lot of that relies on the federal government, the executive, complying. Is DHHS going to comply with those edicts? I don't know. And then what happens if they don't comply? Will those secretaries or cabinet members be brought before a court of law and be made to, go to jail, literally, for being held in some cases in criminal contempt? What they've been doing so far is when they're ordered to come to the court to address why they haven't done something that the court has ordered them to do, they just don't show up, which is kind of crazy. How would we get them there? Well, usually speaking, it's through the U.S. Marshals. And, that's generally what happens, except for the U.S. Marshals are controlled by the executive branch. So are they going to haul in, Kristi Noem or RFK Jr. or any of the other directors or, secretaries and cabinet members who lead these agencies? I don't know. And that's when we are in a constitutional crisis, when the courts have ordered something and the federal government refuses to do it. But remember, this is about many things, including the majorities, the Republican majorities in the House and Senate, taking back their Article 1 constitutional authority. And the other thing to remember is that even though I know this seems like, oh my God, Congress is never going to do this, but they could impeach the president. Now, I know the thought is like, how would we ever get a majority of House members to do this? How would we ever get, 2/3 of the Senate? But I don't know. I mean, if like all of us are like kind of like pitchforks in the street, yelling and screaming at these Republican members for not doing their jobs and blaming them, which they should be blamed for this, right? They have the authority to do something about it and they refuse to do it. I would suggest to you that, eventually it could happen. And either it's the Trump administration being forced to comply with court orders, or again, like impeachment could be on the table. There are ways that we could still very much legally address these issues. If only we can get Republicans to, again, recognize that like they have a job to do. And it's, of course, to listen to their constituents, but also, to exert their authority under the Constitution and not allow these things to all happen through executive orders. And also, hopefully, not to strip people of their health care.
Thanks, Dana. A comment from somebody on Zoom is thanking you for providing the supportive access for issues with Social Security. And as I understand it, you have something where people can report issues with Social Security. Is that correct?
Yeah, right on our website. If you're having a problem with Social Security, we are asking people to report it and to give us as much specific information as possible about what's happening. And here's why we need that. In the event that we potentially can bring a lawsuit at some point because the Social Security Administration is just not doing their job, I need to be able to create standing. What's standing? Well, it's a specific concrete injury to the people of my state. And so if I find out there are thousands of people that were receiving their Social Security properly and then just stopped, or that there are significant delays, meaning you're going weeks or months at a time without getting your Social Security, or that you're not getting the full amount you're supposed to get, or for a lot of people who are turning a certain age that they're trying to apply, and this will just anecdotally, somebody in my office who turned 65, and we're not reducing it to 40 years. But, if, people who are trying to sign up and they're like completely unable and they're on the phone all day, can't get a hold of anybody, and, are having a really difficult time engaging in the sign up process, that's information we absolutely need to have. And so if you can post it on your social media, if you haven't already, if every single person can share it and say, hey, anybody who's having problems with their Social Security, please contact the Michigan Department Attorney General. Here's the form that you need to fill out. But if I start to get information, I mean, last I checked, there was maybe like 140, 150 people that were experiencing problems. Which may or may not be like typical for the Social Security Administration. I can't say that that's different than every other month where there's 150 people in a state with so many people that have issues. But if it's many, many thousands of people that had their Social Security coming in uninterrupted, no problem, and all of a sudden started to experience issues, well, now maybe we can get to a point where we have standing to contest what that administration is doing and saying they're not doing their job correctly, and people are suffering as a result.
Thanks. I'm going to combine two questions that are on Zoom, but I think it falls under, I think it works. It's about marginal communities or communities at risk, especially members of our Venezuelan families and our Ukrainian families and anybody else who is being attacked by this administration. Are there ways that your office can help them?
So there are a few things. Firstly, if anybody, when you say attacked, if people are being subjected to like literal, crimes, hate crimes, remember national origin is a protected class. So, and we just changed the hate crimes laws to make them more substantive in terms of what the penalties are. So you can report that to our department. You can report it right to our hate crimes unit. And yeah, we can investigate. And, if there's evidence to do so, we could bring charges. But in terms of protecting them, in terms of deportation, this is one of the big issues, of course, that, we've had with the various ways that the Trump administration is advancing their policies. people are still entitled to due process, even if you are, whether you are here with temporary status as an asylum seeker, you're entitled to due process. Frankly, even if you're here undocumented, you are entitled to a hearing and you're entitled to access to counsel. Even the student visa holders who probably have the least amount of protections because they don't have traditional due process rights, but they are still entitled. You can't just like snatch people off the streets and put them in a holding facility and never provide them with a proper hearing, never advise them of like, here is the exact reason that your visa is being revoked, and just leave them, like I said, in a prison for an indefinite period of time. You can't do that. None of these things traditionally have happened, and it's illegal to do that stuff now. And I think, again, the important thing that we have to demand in the courts, and the courts are starting to recognize this, is that due process rights matter. And they matter for all of us. And again, even for people who, for whatever reason, have no sympathy, no empathy for people who are, foreign nationals. And I don't know why, because I have to tell you that like all of our families started out as a foreign national at some point, unless, even those that got off the Mayflower, like they came from someplace else. I guess the argument is indigenous people came from here, and enslaved people were brought against their will. But everybody else, I mean, we all came from somewhere, and we are all entitled to these rights. But it starts with Venezuelan nationals, it starts with Haitians and Cubans and so forth, and from people from South America, Central America, and from Mexico. But it ain't going to end there. And you heard the president himself saying, "Oh, how do we get homegrown people sent to an LSAT to CCOT?" What? Homegrown? You know what homegrown means? Americans.
Yeah.
American citizens. I mean, so like this is where they're starting, but it's not where they plan to end. And that's why we just all have to be so incredibly concerned about it. But these are conversations to have with your friends and your family and your neighbors. This is why you should be loud and vocal. And in the meantime, others of us will continue to engage in litigation. We'll continue to sue. And again, some of these cases are proving to be, when I say successful, the fact that we just got the United States Supreme Court to say no more flights to CCOT under the Alien Enemies Act. P.S. We're not really like, there should be some determination as to whether we can do any of that under the Alien Enemies Act, since we're not at war with Venezuela. I mean, so the courts are starting to step up. And as you saw, I mean, to use stronger language from the Fourth Circuit, you have this very conservative Reagan appointee who, like, I don't know if you read the language of the one of the cases involving one of the Venezuelans that had been illegally removed. But I mean, he did not mince words. And I think the more that you have more and more judges and justices out there that are like, that's enough. And I mean, you guys saw, I'm sure, that tweet from the White House saying, he's never coming back. And, that's the kind of thing that courts don't take lightly. Like literally some, I don't know, 22-year-old, pardon my language, asshole who is operating the White House, X account with the permission, I'm sure, of senior officials there, is like taunting the courts and saying, we're not going to obey with the courts. We don't care what you say. And one thing I can tell you about federal court judges, they don't appreciate that. They think that their orders matter, and it doesn't matter if they're far-right conservatives. It doesn't matter if they are Trump appointees. They don't like being told that their orders can be disregarded and there's without consequence. They're not into that. So I think we are going to start seeing some progress in the courts for sure. But then it's going to be a matter of, will there be compliance? And my hope is that, conservative Republicans out there even will say, this is not cool for, this administration to be completely lawless in the way that they have been.
Okay, thank you. We've got another question from Michael Hertz here in the room.
Welcome back to Benzie, by the way. Since you brought up the issue of homegrown terrorists, I want to remind everybody that today is the 30th anniversary of the worst episode of homegrown terrorism, domestic terrorism, the country's ever seen. 30 years ago, 168 people lost their lives in Oklahoma City. There is a link between those people and the state of Michigan, and your administration and the governor was the butt of some right-wing terrorist activity earlier on. And I wonder if you can comment on whether or not your department has seen an increase in right-wing militia-style stuff increasing since the orange person in the White House took office or not, and what the Attorney General's office is doing regarding that.
So several responses to your question. One, we've not seen an increase, and I think the reason for that is because they have every branch of government. What are they mad about? When we saw a big increase, it was frankly it started, I think, during the Obama years when we had a Democratic trifecta for some 2 years, and that's when they felt powerless to do anything through government. And so you saw this organization of militia groups coming along to combat what they thought was hilarious, that they thought that was, jackbooted thugs or, fascism in government compared to what we have now. So I've not seen that, but there could be a reason for that. And that's that the Department of Justice and the FBI is basically under an edict not to investigate those cases. And if they have knowledge of it, it's certainly not to pass that information along to the Democratic Attorney General. So we used to have a really tight working relationship with the FBI on domestic terrorism cases. And we have, again, the name of the unit is the Hate Crimes and Domestic Terrorism Unit. And, we handled jointly with the FBI and the Michigan State Police those cases involving the Wolverine Watchmen, for the threats against the governor, but also threats against people, in elected office, Republicans too, all over the state of Michigan. Also, we had another organization called the Base that was operating in the Thumb area. And they were, a anti-government white supremacy group that was, training, had uniforms, had a manual. And, those folks are in prison now. And they never ended up blowing up a church or a synagogue or, a mosque or a 4th of July parade or anything like that, because we were able to intercept them in time and convict them of domestic terrorism crimes. By the way, you might know there are no domestic terrorism crimes under federal law, only state law. So only I can prosecute that, not the feds. But we rely on our federal partnerships with the DOJ and the FBI and HSI and all the rest. And now they're not going to cooperate with us. So it's going to be a lot harder if those groups are operating. The Michigan State Police, candidly, they just don't have the type of tools and resources that the feds have. And the feds are, they ain't going to tell us. So am I aware of an uprising in those groups? No, but would I know about it? Also, maybe no, even as the top law enforcement official in the state. But my suspicion is they're just so happy with what's happening through the legal branches of government that they haven't felt the need to organize in the same way.
Thanks, Dana. We've got another question that's kind of off what we were talking about, but a couple people want to know if you could give us a status about line 5.
Well, our case in the Ingham County Circuit Court to shut down Line 5 continues. However, and we're waiting right now actually for a decision from Judge Jamo on these cross motions for summary disposition that will give us some idea of where the court is headed. But you might have seen the Army Corps of Engineers being given a directive to expedite the permitting of the Line 5 tunnel under the Straits of Mackinac. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, there's a lot of problems with that. And one is that, technically the Public Service Commission, there's a number of things that you're supposed to look at before you get that permitting. And one is, this is obviously a very sensitive geological ecosystem. And, there are lots of environmental studies that are supposed to be thoroughly done, and it takes a long time. And basically, the Trump administration is like, well, we don't really care about that now. Just get it done. And, start burrowing that tunnel. They're also supposed to look at the necessity of, is there a less potentially damaging way from an ecological or an environmental standpoint to be able to service people's energy needs? But they're kind of just doing away with all of that. And, the federal government, and I was worried about this his first term in office. I was hopeful that while Biden was in office, that he would do something a little bit more aggressive, which he had the authority to do, and for whatever reason chose not to. But we may see them begin to move forward on this tunnel. And I sure hope and pray that it's done, if that happens, in a way that is not going to cause horrific damage under the straits. It could definitely do. Enbridge in the past has used contractors that have a terrible, terrible history when it comes to causing ecological damage. So we're waiting on my case in state court, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen with the Army Corps of Engineers and if these permits are going to go through.
Okay, thanks. We have another question here in the room. No, just stand where you are and
Thank you for being here. I think
close to
you
your
had
mouth,
mentioned-
please. Closer to your mouth.
you had mentioned, we all spoke about Social Security, and I think there's a great fear in the older community. One, with Musk and his minions in there investigating it. One, where is that information going? Can that be prevented? And two, I personally, I'm a disabled vet. I'm a senior citizen on Social Security. I have never outed myself in a group like this. However, I'm kind of very concerned on all our documents, including our trust, our will, our Social Security, to include VA. It states they ask about my preferences. Where is that information going? And I think a lot of people just with their Social Security numbers and whatnot, where is this going? And I guess what's our future is the rest of the gay community. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I try to not sugarcoat things. It's not really my style to do that. So I'm going to try to be honest with everybody. I brought a suit against Elon Musk and Doge very early on to try to prevent them from getting getting their hands on all of our most personal information. And remember, like generally speaking, in order to access that information, oh my God, there's so many hoops to jump through in these various different agencies. And that includes like massive amounts of background vetting. Like if you are getting hired to do this work, should you not have a history of working with hackers? That's what I would hope, but they didn't do that. And some of these Doge employees themselves have worked as hackers. So not only should you be passing the background check, but you should have all the proper training involved to make sure that you're doing this properly. There should be lots of work done to make sure that, you know, you're using secure servers that can't be hacked, that the information, you know, can't be shared with an AI program. But unfortunately, for many of the administrations, or sorry, many of the departments and agencies, you know, we were unable to get a temporary restraining order in my case that I filed in the District of Columbia. And it was so sad. And I was really unhappy actually with the district court judge, who is generally speaking a good judge. But she said, I'll never forget that. She goes, well, the problem is the harm hasn't happened yet. And I was like, yeah, but once it does, it's too late. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle. And we have to protect people from that harm now. So we have had some rulings from different courts that are like, oh, you can't share the information now, but we suspect it's already been shared. You have to destroy or delete information that you already gained, but like it's already out there. And, you know, you might have seen several articles about the fact that like immediately after a lot of this information was downloaded, again, onto unsecure servers by people that were not properly trained or vetted, that there were Russian hackers that immediately tried to hack into those systems. And my fear is that maybe successfully. The other thing is Elon Musk, you know, openly kind of bragged about his relationship with the Russian government, and especially directly with, you know, Vladimir Putin. So has he already shared all of our most sensitive and personal information with our adversaries? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's more likely than not. So I know when, yeah, you're right. Musk was not elected operating illegally. That was our argument. You know, the Senate didn't confirm Elon Musk to anything, not to even lead one administration, let alone all the administration or all the agencies and the departments, right? So, and this is a guy who has countless conflicts of interest. Can you imagine that somebody who is competing with another company for a contract with the government has the authority to not only get all of your most sensitive information from that particular business, but also to decide whether or not to terminate that contract? Like, that's insane. I mean, it's literally insane, but it's what's happening, and it's what's already happened. So, I mean, I wish I could give you some sort of guarantee that your information hasn't been shared with Black Cat, whatever that, you know, foreign, you know, cyber terrorists out there that are the ones that like hack into all our healthcare systems, or, you know, private businesses and steal all your information and then try to ransom it back to you. But I think it likely has. And that includes, you know, state secrets. That includes information about our military operations from the Department of Defense. So I wish I could tell you there was a way to fix all of this. I don't know that there is. All we can do is continue to try and do the best that we possibly can. But I got to tell you, when I paid my taxes last weekend, I was just like, here's everything that you ever need to get into my bank account. You know, here's everything that you ever need to steal my identity. And there's just nothing I can do about it because I had to pay my taxes, you know? And I think a lot of people who voted for Trump and a lot of people who didn't vote at all are going to be in for a really rude awakening for what, you know, what their actions led to when it comes to their own personal data and information. You guys might know that I used to always do these consumer protection and senior scam town halls where I would go around the state teaching people how to protect their information. Well, I can tell you this, the state of Michigan is going to protect your information. Like, we would never allow that to happen in the state government. But I don't know, like, what's the point of me even doing those anymore when you have like one of the biggest hackers of all time, in my opinion, who was, you know, permitted by the president of all people to obtain all of our most sensitive data and information. I know that that is a pretty pessimistic way for me to frame all of this, but I think it's also just honest and reasonable and logical for me to presume all of this. And that's why we have to fight back harder than ever. And when you talk to people again, when you're talking to people in Northern Michigan, make sure they know and understand what this means for them.
Thanks, Dana. And your honesty is one of the many, many reasons that we love you and are always happy to have you. Do you have time for maybe one more question? I know we're.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Jane, I know you had a question.
Thank you for everything. There's so much corruption. It's just so unbelievable, like Trump's stock in private prisons and, you know, it goes on and on. But the piece about Line 5, the guy, I forget his name, the contractor who would be the one to build the tunnel and be in charge of it, he and his wife gave Trump, I don't know, like at least $1 million for his campaign, and he received what, like 500 million or billion, I don't know, lots and lots of money to build the wall last time around. And he's still under investigation for like trashing his workers, wage laws and all that kind of stuff, workers' rights. How is this not a conflict? And this is, of course, obviously why Trump sped up the permit. Like, when do the conflicts become, you know, illegal?
I mean, you have to presume that you have a Department of Justice that cares, and they don't care, right? I mean, look how they, you know, all of the investigations. I mean, I think that there are so many instances that we can point to, but like look at Eric Adams. Eric Adams was a Democrat and obviously facing really significant corruption charges. And all he had to do was fly to Washington, D.C. and get down on bended knee and you know, feign loyalty to the president, and then also give unlimited access to Rikers and all these other New York operated, whether they were jails, whether it's their systems, and say, yeah, we'll let you know who all of our immigrants are. And anybody who's undocumented that we have a record of, we're going to give you that information. And then all the charges against him got dropped. I have to say, like, there's nothing worse from the perspective of, you know, I'm a longtime prosecutor, and you can't even imagine the amount of time, energy, effort, resources that goes into these public corruption cases, only to know that the president, like, all you got to do is, you know, again, give him that $1 million contribution, or just give him anything he wants. And sometimes all he wants is, again, your loyalty, and then you get whatever it is that you want. So yes, there was a time when that public corruption issue would be, my God, a president would get impeached for that, just that. And now it doesn't even make the news.
Okay, we've got one more question, and Sue's got it. Yeah, so can you get the microphone to Sue, please? Thanks.
Hello, my name's Sue Jennings, and appreciate everything you're doing, and I respect it. I'm a retired federal employee, and I just want to comment to you about the wording. When we say the DOJ doesn't care, there's employees, friends of mine that still work there. Some have had to leave. They do care. Federal employees do care. They are under great duress, and I think the wording should be the administration. The Trump administration doesn't care and is doing this. I think that kind of language is how we got here. The hate towards federal employees and civil servants. We used to be respected, and since Reagan administration has been saying, you know, negative things about the government employees. So let's use the right language. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, obviously, when I say the DOJ, I mean, Pam Bondi doesn't care, right? And those who are in senior positions, elevated there by the Trump administration, don't care. I have many, many, many longtime friends, people that I've known, you know, for 30 or more years, people I went to law school with, people who I worked with as a baby prosecutor in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, very close friends of mine that work at the Department of Justice. And they are magnificent employees, government officials. I know, I think, some of the best and brightest AUSAs and FBI agents, and people who care deeply about the safety and the security of Americans, and who work tirelessly to, again, protect the public and stand up against public corruption. But they're powerless right now because of the leadership that's there. And so I have friends that are assistant U.S. attorneys that have seen some of their most important and impactful cases that they've ever worked on in a dime. They are told, stop working on that, or in some cases, to move to set aside a conviction that they worked really hard on. Not because people are innocent, not because there was anything unjust about that conviction, but because it was somebody who had paid off Trump, or it was something from an ideological perspective that the Trump administration disagreed with, right? It might be a domestic terrorism case, but it was good because the people that you threatened are, were enemies of the Trump administration, or, they were, like the January 6th exonerees, right? These are people, as long as it doesn't matter, like you can beat the hell out of police officers as long as you're doing it for Donald Trump. And so my friends at the DOJ, I can't believe that even any of them are still working there and have not been fired yet. Yeah, they're incredibly disheartened because they have devoted so much of their lives, so much of their careers to defending the Constitution. So I take your point. I appreciate your point. Yes, it is the Trump administration. It is not those dedicated civil servants that in so many cases have put their lives on the line for us.
All right. Well, thank you, Dana, for putting, your expertise and working for us. You are welcome any time to come back to Benzie. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you guys for all the work that you're doing, and please take to heart some of the comments that I've made. We need you guys now more than ever.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So I know that we weren't able to get all the questions to Dana. If you do have a question, why don't you send it to our email, and we will try to forward that to her office. So our email is benziedemocrats@gmail.com, and I will see to it that it gets to her office. Mike? Wait a minute, Mike, why don't you take the microphone so people on Zoom can hear this wonderful offer?
The Benzie Dems for years have been.
Step into the light.
Okay.
There we go.
The Benzie Dems for many years now have been participating in the Adopt a Highway program, and we need some new blood, so to say. Some people's knees have been given out. Some of them have aged out. I have this right here. We are going next Saturday at 10 a.m. And if you're interested, I'll let you know where that is. But I need contact. Oh yeah.
Yeah. To show the attractive. Yes. Be the envy of all you see by wearing this lovely, as modeled by Deanne Law. Yeah. Right.
Well, the one stretch we're doing this week, we have two stretches. The one we're doing this week is on M22 down towards Crystal Lake. Or no, excuse me, that's not the one. It's out by 115 by Crystal Mountain. And we're going to meet at the gas station that's right past Crystal Mountain. But anyway, I'm going to pass this around, and if you care to put your name on it, we do it 3 times a year, spring, fall, summer.
Just wanted to talk to room a little bit. Is this still on? Or I don't know, you probably can hear me.
You have to put it close to your mouth, please. Thank you.
Okay. The reason that I came to this meeting is because I wanted to speak in behalf on that and let you know there's 12 tribes in Michigan. I'm an elected leader for the Little River Bend, the one just south of here. And with this tunnel in line 5, we have backed away from negotiations. There were 5 tribes that were leading that spear along with Dano Nessel in her court case. There's 5 tribes now. We've backed away and we've entered our own lawsuit against the Enbridge and the Line 5 and the tunnel permitting because we don't want that to happen either. So we stopped negotiating with the Army Corps of Engineers, 5 tribes in Michigan. So that's over half of the tribal population. That's a good portion in
Thank you.
Michigan. So we, we stopped negotiating with the Army Corps of Engineers because they're not taking our comments and suggestions up forward like they need to. So I just want to share that in support of everything that's going on in here. Now, my apologies for running in late. I ran up here as fast as I could and find parking and getting in here. But I just wanted to share that with the group, these tribes and, all of us in Michigan, we're actively watching that and advocating. So that's another support along with the Democratic Party. So thanks
Boy,
for your
thank
time.
you so much. Thank you. Okay, so because we kind of turned the meeting upside down, here's just a few chair announcements. We've got some things to put on your calendar. There's the scholarship dinner May 6th at Coal Creek Inn, and the team has been working on that. So please put that on your calendar. It's coming up pretty soon. It's going to be $50, which includes your tip and a soft drink. And of course, we will take additional donations if you wish, but the scholarship program has been so successful. It's been actually amazing. It's increased over the past years through your generosity. We also have treasurer training on May 31st at the Mills House. So if any of you are interested in learning about being a treasurer, we're doing this in conjunction with the Rural Summit and the Michigan Democratic Party. So there's going to be other treasurers and potential treasurers learning about how to be a treasurer for an organization such as ours. Our May speaker is going to be Jess Piper. Has anybody heard of Jess Piper? She is pretty amazing. She's a former teacher from Missouri who has kind of taken on this mission to promote what's happening in rural communities and, why Democrats have been, for some reason, forgetting rural communities and why they are doing it at their peril, because we are strong, we are powerful, we vote. So she's going to be our speaker by Zoom in May. We're also working with Mallory McMorrow's people to get her up here to talk to Benzie. So we're going to have like a jam-packed speaker schedule. So far, they've all been women, and I don't know. I don't know. Also, too, if you're not doing anything Thursday night, Woo Woo is having the second in their amazing film series. It's at 7:00 at the Garden Theater, and the film is Mikvah, Democracy is a Verb. If you went to the last one, that was amazing, and then it was followed up by a panel discussion with our own Ed Hutrip, and he's going to do that again after this film. So that's next Thursday, the 24th. All right. Deanne is going to give us an update on our lookouts, and I think we had somebody who was in the room and who may hopefully still be here who expressed an interest in being a lookout. So Deanne's going to tell you how all that works. There it is. I'm sorry, Jen. Thank you.
Hi. So recently we've had some new lookout. I'm the editor of the lookout. Oh, wow. It's in my face. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. It's for the Zoom. Okay. So we have some new lookout reporters, and I would like to take a moment to mention their names. So if you hear your name, if you're here and you want to stand up, let's give them a round of applause. So Louise Brody, she's now reporting for the city of Frankfurt, and she started as of March of this year. Arlene Sweeting is now reporting for Gilmore. Yeah. And she's been reporting since February. And Robert Fitzke is now reporting for the Homestead Township. Yeah. Yeah. And we really have an urgent need for a lookout reporter for Crystal Lake Township. It's a big township. And one of the things is you don't have to be someone that lives in Crystal Lake Township. You can, anybody can report. You just have to go to one meeting a month. You have to take notes, write up the report, send it to me. I'll edit it. It doesn't have to be edited. And I can give you my phone number and my email right now. My name or my email is Deanne, DeAnnelle 84 @gmail.com. And my phone number is 231-590-5430. So just give me a call. We'll get you all set up. It's not that hard. We really, really appreciate it. And also, if there's anyone to do Blaine, Colfax, and Weldon Township, we haven't had people do those townships either. So thank you, everybody that's doing those reports. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
All right. And last month, Aubry was going to give us a tutorial on how to use our social media accounts much more effectively, and we are able to do that now. But also, too, right after this meeting, we are going to have a little time if people want to make some posters, because after that, we are going to stand in front of the office and we are going to protest, because we are one of the 51 events happening today, a day of action. A peaceful day of action. It's community focused, so that's why we are collecting food for the Benzie food partners, who already are seeing an increased demand for food from our neighbors, our friends. So if you can donate some food, or if you want to donate some money, see me or Jim Dulzo, and we'll be happy to relieve you of that. But that is our day of action. And to help you, we are going to have music by the TC Celtic group. Half of that group is sitting here. So
Dylan, we've got some new rally songs too. Songs of rally in the new people and songs of rally from the old ones. I've got some 30 song sheets so I can share with y'all to sing along, hopefully.
Yep, so we can make a joyful, peaceful noise with the help of the TC Celtic group. So that's going to be after this meeting, and after, if people want to make some posters, fine. If you've already got some and you want to stand outside, please stay on this side of the of our complex here. The salon does have some clients coming today, so that's why we restricted the parking. If there are cars coming through, please make way. And again, I really thank you all for being here. So without further ado, let's turn this over to Aubry.
Hi, everybody. I know that we are over on time, so I'm going to try to keep this short, but hopefully it's interesting. We just have not done any sort of tutorial in a while. So first of all, my question is, how do you access political info right now? How many of you, and this is not an either or, it can be all of these. So how many of you get your political information from television? How many of you get it from the radio? How many of you are Dems emails? How many of you are on the Dems email list? Okay, we'll get to that. How many of you are accessing information through other emails like Substack from Heather Cox Richardson or someone like that? Great. YouTube. My dad's a big YouTuber. Yeah, YouTube. Facebook. Instagram. TikTok. Twitter or X now. How many of you about books? You are getting your Blue Sky. We have a new Blue Sky account. All right. So we're going to go through some of them. We're obviously not going to get to all of them, but I just want to kind of get a feel for how you're getting your political news. And we're wanting to encourage you to get your different news from different sources. So right now, this is our Benzie Dems website. How many of you have been to the Benzie Dems website? You knew that we had a website. Great. So on the Benzie Dems website, one of the first things I just want to go through, Greta maintains this for us. So there's a few things I wanted to show you guys in particular. So you can become a member here in the room. You can fill it out, but you can also become a member by going to About Us and clicking on Become a Member. And there's all of this information about how you can donate online, how you can fill out the membership form, things like that, okay? So I just want to make you guys aware that that's an option. The other thing is we have a calendar of events. So you go to Get Involved, okay, and go down to our Benzie Dems calendar. So you can see that, here we go, here's today's meeting, right? You can see when the next meeting is. You can see that we have office hours on Tuesdays. So that's a good thing. The next thing is what we were just talking about was these county township lookout reports. How many of you are getting the county and township lookout reports emailed to you? You live in Elmira Township and you're getting them emailed, or you live in Benzie County, you're getting them emailed. So that's a great thing to sign up for as well. Like Deanne was just saying, we have people going to those meetings. So what you can do is, let's say that you live in Elmira Township, you're already getting those emails, but you heard that something juicy happened last month at the Benzonia Township meeting. I don't know that that's true, but let's just pretend that something juicy happened, right? You can click on that and you can see that they have the January meeting. So we're a little behind, but we're trying to get someone in for that, right? But you can read about what Commissioner Nye said and all of those things, okay? So I want you to know about that. You can also get those emailed to you, but that's a really great resource for just helping, because obviously, you know, our small town newspapers, of which I am one of, we don't have the capacity, right, to go to all of those meetings. So this is just about transparency for you guys so that you know what's going on at those meetings. So it's a really important part. So if we go back to our Get Involved here, the other thing I wanted to show you is volunteer for the Benzie Dems. There's all these ways that you can get involved, okay? The last thing that I have, and there's also write a letter to the editor. We have a great letters to the editor team. So if you're interested in helping out with that. The last thing that I just wanted to show you here on the website is, if we go back to this home page and you scroll down, it says media sources to check out. So we started this list. We would love if you emailed us, benziedemocrats@gmail.com, for more people to follow. But this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm reading right now a story, a book by Emily Amick, Emily in Your Phone. She's one of my favorites, okay? So this is her book, and we have the link to her book. But there are other ways. Maybe you're not a book person. Maybe you're a podcast person. I didn't ask about podcasts. How many people in the room listen to podcasts? That's what my partner does. So you can sign up for her podcasts, okay? If you are a Substack person or an email, you like to read your news, this is her Substack. What you can do is you can type your email in here, and she will send you every time that she publishes, which is about 2 times a week, and she has all different kinds of stuff that she talks about, okay? She's a former attorney. Now she does this politics thing year round, and that's what she's doing for her full-time job. But she's got different information that you can follow, right? The next thing is, if you're on Instagram, she posts all kinds of stuff. Call your reps, and she talks about how to do that, right? She gives you like information about how to find out who your rep is, all kinds of stuff. So that's just one person. We have a lot of people on here. And if we're missing anyone that you follow, like I said, Heather Cox Richardson earlier, I know that a lot of people know her, but there are a lot of other people out there who are in this space who are doing really good things that you can follow them on podcasts or YouTube or whatever way that you like to get your news, right? And so I would really encourage that you guys check this out. It's a really good resource. And if you have other people that you want to add, and like I said, you can just click on the links and it takes you right to where these people are and how you can follow them. So backing up, if I go back to our homepage, the last thing I want to do, how many of you brought your phone or your tablet or your laptop with you? Now is the time to pull that out. So I want you to go to benziedemocrats.com. Yes, benziedemocrats.com. And you can see right here in the middle is the easiest way to get to our Facebook page, in my opinion. Because if you click on that right here in the center of the page, it should take you to our Benzie Dems page on Facebook. If you're on your phone or tablet, it might then want to pop up Facebook, and you can do that. The other way to do that is that you can just open up your Facebook app on your phone or your tablet, and you can type into the search bar Benzie Democrats. I'm going to wait just a couple minutes until you guys get there, and you can put your hands up if you struggle to get there. But I think the easiest way is probably going to benziedemocrats.com, and then you click on that. One thing I also want to say about this is some people have said to me, oh, what's the point? Like, what's the point in sharing? I feel like I'm just sharing in a silo. I feel like I only get either troll comments who are really coming after me, or I only get people who already think like I do. And one of the things I want to say to that while you guys are getting all this ready is I post in my stories generally, not necessarily on my personal Facebook page, but I post in my stories a lot. For those of you who know what stories is, they go away after 24 hours. But the point is, I've had so many people who I thought weren't paying attention, or people who I thought didn't care about politics because they never post about it. They never comment on my stuff. They never do anything. And they will reach out to me in a direct message so no one else sees it. And they will say something like, thank you. I didn't know about this. Or sometimes they'll challenge me. Well, why are you looking at it this way? What about this? And I don't mind the challenge when it's respectful, right? And it's coming from that place of respect, and we're trying to see each other on an issue. And what I will say to that is, you never know who's watching. And a lot of people will be watching and they won't ever like anything. They won't ever give you a heart. They won't ever DM you, but they're learning from you. And so I think it's really important that we all continue to use our voices in whatever ways we can, on whatever platforms we can. And I'm just going to give you this brief tutorial because we have a Benzie Dems Facebook page. We're working on getting an Instagram. We're building up our blue sky. But for now, if it's everyone on Facebook, on our Benzie Dems Facebook page, you see it looking like this for now? Okay. So the first thing, yeah. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that everyone has liked the page and followed it. So at the top, you should see something that says like or follow if you haven't in the past. If you haven't, make sure to like and follow the page. The second thing that I want to show you is that you can come down here, and this was the post that I put up just this morning, right? Posting about this meeting. If you can right now, you can like it, you can comment, and or you can share. As much as you can. It's fantastic when you can do one or two or maybe even all three of those things, right? I always try to do every single one. Steve Thompson tries to do every single one. He's great. And I know that some of you will periodically, I'm not saying you have to be on Facebook every day. You can come on once a week and just go through and like the last 10 posts that you haven't liked in the past. And the reason I want to say that is, let's say Jana and I are friends on Facebook, okay? Yeah. But Jana isn't friends with Mark Willett Green, but I'm friends with Mark Willett Green on Facebook, right? So what can happen is, if Jana likes something and then I see it and I like it, it's more likely that it will show up in Mark's algorithm. That's the way algorithms work. The more likes and the more shares and the more comments, but also particularly from people who you are friends with on Facebook. So if Jana likes something and I don't like it, it's less likely that Mark's going to see it. But if we both like it and I comment, it's way more likely that Mark is going to see it. And the reason that becomes important is because it helps to get the word out about our events. It helps to get the word out. I mean, like today, we had 70 people in the room. We had 70 people online. That is the most that we've ever had. And I really think, yeah, some of you are finding out about the meetings from just being on the website or getting the emails, but a lot of it is coming in through Facebook as well. And so what I would like to say is that it's just really important that you guys are liking and commenting and sharing on this, just because it helps to get it out there. Yeah. It's not as good as an actual comment. I wouldn't say that it lowers it. I would say that it's not as good to do an emoji type thing than it is to write an actual comment. It still is better than not commenting at all, I would say, but it's not as good as writing a full comment out. That's a good question. So one thing I want to show you about the impact of this is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to show you, we've been posting a lot lately, but I want to show you some of what that is. So for instance, One of my examples, yes. So one of my examples is just we had, for instance, like this was a letter to the editor recently, okay? And it had 18 likes, it had 4 comments, and it had 1 share, okay? But on the back end, what I can do is I can see there were 600 views and there were 296 people reached, okay? So what that means is that 296 people, individuals, saw it, and some of them saw it twice because views can be counted for more, like 2 or 3 times for one individual, okay? It had 23 interactions, which are those likes and comments and shares that we just saw. So the reason that that gets important is because, so that's pretty good. And what you can see is it was 82% of our followers. I can zoom in on this. 82% of our followers. So we have about 1,000 followers, I think, on Facebook. And 82% were people who already follow the page and only 18% not, okay? What I'm gonna show you now is for this post, which had 34 likes, 3 comments, 11 shares, which was about the World Central Kitchen fundraiser last weekend. If we go to that, you can see it had 1,328 views by 717 individuals, 51 interactions, but look at the percentage. 50%, 51% were people who followed our page and 49% were people who didn't. And the reason that that becomes important is because when someone likes something on our page, what I can do is this tricky little maneuver where I can click here and you can see I already invited all these people, but let's say that Cheryl McKean had not liked our page already. I can click and I can invite her to like the page. So that's how we start to build, is when we get to those non-followers, right? So we want to constantly, so you have plenty of people, I'm sure, who you are friends with who are not following the Benzie Dems. And so the more that we can get to those people, and that can be as simple as you just liking and commenting, and if you want to, sharing as well. And so if you click share, it goes to your own page, right? So if I were to, I'm not logged in as myself right now, but if I were, I could write like, yeah, great meeting today. And then I would click share, and that would go on my personal timeline, Aubry Parker, okay? So that's a great way to do that. Sometimes you don't want to clog up your feed because you only use it for family. That's fine, but at least put a comment in, at least like it, just because it helps to get that out there. Yeah. Challenge people to like the next post and everybody. What's the most likes we've had a couple hundred on things in the past. Yeah.
Like just really see how many likes we can get, because it sounds like that's going to help the algorithm more than anything.
Yeah. For instance, let's see, where's the one of the most recent ones where we had a lot. We had 130 likes on the video that someone took right here for from your guys' last protest 2 weeks ago. 130 people liked that post. And the insights, let's see, there were a lot of people who saw it. Let's see. Oh, there we go. 1,183 views, nearly 1,000 people saw that. 932 people saw that, individuals. And 57% were followers and 43% were non-followers. And I was able to invite a lot of people from there.
Nice.
So what I would say is the last thing I just want to show you guys is if you can help us by, I'm going to move this. You can help us by, actually, I have to change real quick into myself to show you how to do this. Give me 2 seconds. There's me, there's my page, that's me. So if I go to Benzie Democrats, I want to show you guys something. So here, I haven't liked this yet, right? So I'm going to like it. I can comment. I'm going to comment, great. Right? It doesn't have to be anything long. It can be. I could share it if I wanted to onto my own page. But then the thing I want to show you is up here is this tricky little part. So if you've still got your phone out, you're going to click on these 3 dots. You're going to click invite friends. Oh. And then theoretically, there we go. Look it. I've invited 608 people to this page.
We don't have enough food.
I have 3,342 people I have never invited. So what I can do is I can click on them. I can click on them and I can click send invites, right? You can click up to 1,000 at a time, but even if you just did 10, right? If every person in this room did 10, that would be 700 new invites to our page. And our page currently has 1,800 followers. That would put us at 2,500.
Right, we do.
So as much as you can, if you can like the page, if you can comment and share, but also invite your friends. That's how we get people to know more about what's going on. And that's the last thing I want to say is if we go back to the Benzie Dems website, the last thing I want to get you guys to do is, where is it? Signing up for our emails. Oh, it's right here. Duh, I'm being stupid. It's right here. So we've got this membership right here. And then we've got about, is it an about? Yeah, subscribe to our weekly emails. So you can click on that. If you have not previously, you should. This is how you do that. But what you can do too is you can grab this link, you can copy it, and you can send that to your friends. So if I were in my email, which I'm not, but if I were in my email, what I could do is I could grab this link, you just copy it. So you go up here to the top, copy the link. Does everyone know how to do that? Control C, Command C. Okay, well, we can talk about it afterward. You can come up and ask me and I can show you. And you can paste that into your email and you can send people to this page to sign them up, to have them sign themselves up. You can't sign them up, but you can have them sign themselves up. And that way, it's another way, again, just to get the word out, get more people understanding what it is that we're doing, get emails in their inbox, get them to come to the meetings. So I can stick around a little bit afterward to help you guys on your phones and your tablets independently, but I hope that this helps. We just haven't done one of these tutorials in about 5 years, so.
Thank you, Aubry. Thank you. 1 second. We are so fortunate to have Aubry help us with, yeah, we certainly are. Help us manage our social media presence in addition to the 84 zillion other things that this young woman does. So again, a big a round of applause for Aubry and a big thank you. She will be around for a few more minutes if you do have any questions. One thing I wanted to also mention is we're now able to increase our office hours. Before we were just open on Tuesday, but now thanks to Mike Hertz, we are going to be open Tuesday and Thursday. So, stop by. If there's something you want to do, say hello. We're going to be open for business. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add, ma'am? We need a mic. No, it doesn't matter.
Hi. We talked earlier, there was discussion earlier with Dana about having intelligent conversations with other people outside of our team. Okay. Is there any place, because I just don't know, they all watch Fox News constantly on their cars. They listen to Fox Radio, blah, blah, blah. They're not stupid, the people I'm talking about. So but I would like to find a place where there's rebuttal to whatever Fox News is talking about today. So I've actually watched Fox News over the last few weeks just to understand the propaganda. And then there's so many places to go and look that Aubry talked about, but it's overwhelming to try and find the right answers to things. So I just wondered if anybody knew of a place where there's rebuttal to Fox News.
I don't know of one, but that's a very good thing. And I would not be surprised if there was something, if you Google Fox News rebuttal, to see if there's somebody who's, okay.
We're going to do another question?
Yeah, there was a question here.
Hi. Hey, thanks for everybody being here. I'm here in solidarity as a Leon Dem, member of Leon Indivisible. I'm also a precinct delegate, but I have other news. I'm running in a nonpartisan race as a Cherryland Electric Board of Director for an at-large seat. So voting starts May 1st. If you voted in the past, you're likely to get a mailer from me coming up.
And you are?
Brian Fenlon is my name.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Brian.
Thank you. And I'll make it brief. I'm here to protest with you as well. Fenlon is the last name, Fenlon. Brian is the first name. So any of your friends or family, Cherryland members, please, it's a very notoriously low turnout, but I'm trying to reach as many people as possible. At large means I can get anybody from the 6 county area. So I'm here to be in solidarity with you folks, but I'll be in touch. too.
And Brian, yeah, definitely send us something to
Rid of Melinda Lautner.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That's the goal.
All right. Brian, if you want to just send something to us at BenzieDemocrats.com, we'll make sure we'll spread the news. And thank you so much for doing this. And it's good to see you again from the summit. Yep.
I didn't see who asked the question about when Dana was talking about the FBI is not tracking, militias and so forth. But probably many of you know the Southern Poverty Law Center is an incredible organization, and they track all of these groups very closely. They put out maps, and they also do litigation against them, and they've done a lot of incredible work against racial hate, all kinds of hate crimes, so forth. So it's the Southern Poverty Law Center. I really recommend that you check them out and support them, because they're going to fill in a lot that isn't happening in the federal government as far as information. And if you want to track, it's, they have a whole map, and it's a little disconcerting to look at it, but anyway.
That's excellent advice. Thank you. All right. We have got to go. We have run way over, but it was well worth it. And there's still some food. And then we go on to the second part. And thank you all on Zoom and for being here in the room. I'm just so grateful to every single solitary one of you. So thanks again. And we are adjourned.
See you in an hour.